The forgotten room. It was a chilly autumn evening when Sarah moved into the old Victorian house on the edge of town. She had bought it for a steal, charmed by its quaint appearance and spacious rooms, though it had stood vacant for years. The locals whispered that the house was cursed, but Sarah dismissed such talk as mere superstition. She had always loved old houses, and this one felt like a dream come true. The first few days were uneventful as she unpacked her belongings and settled in. The house was creaky, its wooden floorboards groaning with age, but that was to be expected in a house over a century old. Sarah had heard stories about strange noises, unexplained cold drafts, and objects moving on their own, but she had experienced nothing of the sort. She laughed at the idea of ghosts and curses. That is, until she found the door. It was on the second floor, hidden behind a large, dusty mirror at the end of a narrow hallway. Sarah had walked past that spot countless times, never realizing there was a door concealed there. One day, while cleaning, she moved the mirror aside and discovered it. The door was small and unassuming, with an old brass handle that had long tarnished. Curious, she tried the handle, but it wouldn't budge. It seemed locked, and there was no key in sight. Sarah was puzzled. Would someone cover up a door? Her curiosity got the better of her, and she resolved to open it. That evening, she found a locksmith in town and hired him to help. The locksmith was an older man with deep-set wrinkles and a grim expression. When she mentioned the door, he hesitated. "Are you sure you want to open it?" he asked. "Some doors are better left closed." Sarah laughed off his concern. "It's just an old door. What's the worst that could happen?" The locksmith didn't press further and went to work. It took longer than expected, but eventually, with a soft click, the door unlocked. The moment it swung open, an icy gust of air rushed out, and Sarah felt an uneasy chill crawl down her spine. The locksmith quickly packed his tools and left, muttering something about being careful. Behind the door was a narrow staircase leading down into darkness. There was no light, not even the flicker of a bulb. Sarah stood at the top, staring down into the black void. For reasons she couldn't explain, she felt a deep sense of foreboding. It was as if the air itself had thickened, pressing down on her chest. Still, she was determined to explore the forgotten room. Grabbing a flashlight, she descended the stairs, her footsteps echoing in the confined space. At the bottom, she found a small, windowless room, barely large enough to stand in. It was empty, save for an old wooden chair in the center of the room. A thick layer of dust coated everything, suggesting that no one had been down there in decades. But something about the room felt wrong. The air was too still, too cold, and there was an oppressive weight that made it hard to breathe. As Sarah stood there, the beam of her flashlight flickering, she heard a faint whisper. At first, she thought it was her imagination, but the sound grew louder. It was a soft, sibilant voice, speaking in a language she didn't recognize. Her heart began to race. The whisper seemed to come from all around her, surrounding her in the pitch-black room. Suddenly, the door at the top of the stairs slammed shut with a deafening bang, plunging her into complete darkness. Sarah's flashlight flickered out, leaving her in the suffocating void. Panic set in as she fumbled for her phone, but there was no signal. The whispers grew louder, more insistent, as if they were inside her head. Her heart pounded in her chest as she stumbled back toward the stairs. She felt her way through the dark, hand shaking, until she reached the door. She tried the handle, but it wouldn't move. She was locked in. The whispers were deafening now, overlapping and echoing in her mind, and she felt a cold hand brush against her neck. Screaming, she pounded on the door, desperate to escape. But no one heard her. No one came. The next morning, the house was silent. Sarah's car was still parked in the driveway, and her lights were on, but she was nowhere to be found. The townsfolk searched the house from top to bottom, but the door in the hallway was gone, as if it had never existed. And the house stood empty once more, waiting for the next curious soul to unlock its dark secret.